All right, so get this. We're diving into Crimson Desert today. You sent in this Fextra Life video. They went hands-on at Gamescom. And the more I look at this, the more I'm starting to wonder, what kind of game are we even dealing with here?
Yeah, it's definitely had a, let's say, dynamic development journey.
Dynamic is one word for it. First we heard MMO, then it was open world RPG. Now they're calling it open world action adventure. Makes you wonder what's going on behind the scenes.
Hmm. Well, genre shifts like this can happen for a few reasons. Sometimes it's pure creative vision. The devs come up with something new and exciting they want to try,
Yeah.
but can also be a sign they're responding to feedback, maybe from playtesters, or even just trying to find the right fit for the market.
Makes sense. But, okay, enough about the label. Let's get to the gameplay. The Venture Life folks actually got their hands on a demo, and it sounds like combat is king.
Yeah, that hands-on perspective is so valuable. It gives us a feel for what the game is actually like to play.
And what's fascinating here is how they describe the combat. It's not your typical RPG fare. Imagine something more like Devil May Cry or Ninja Gaiden.
Yeah.
Very fast-paced, combo-heavy,
Yeah.
all about skill.
Oh yeah, those are classics. Classic action games where you really have to master the mechanics to succeed, not just grind for better stats.
Exactly. And what's even more interesting is how Crimson Desert approaches progression. You unlock moves almost like skills. And it seems like they're going for a system
Okay.
where your character's power comes more from mastering those moves and less from traditional stat building.
Yeah.
And they're not easing players in either. The demo apparently throws you in with a whole bunch of moves already unlocked. Even the Fextra Life host said it was kind of overwhelming.
I can see how that would be a lot to take in at once. In a full game, I imagine they'd introduce those moves more gradually so you can really get a feel for each one.
Let's hope so. Because there's another layer of complexity here. No lock-on targeting. Think of it like older shooters, where you have to aim manually at all times. Sounds like it could be a real challenge, especially when you've got multiple enemies swarming you.
Yeah, that's a design choice that really screams action game to me. It forces you to be precise, to time your attacks perfectly, and to really understand enemy movements. It's not a mechanic for the faint of heart.
And it sounds like it takes some practice to get the hang of. Even the Fextra Life guy admitted he was struggling a bit with the controls.
Yeah, not surprising given what we're hearing. It definitely sounds like this is a game with a high skill ceiling, meaning there's a lot of room to get good at it. But it might take some time and effort to reach that level of mastery. For people who love action games, that kind of challenge can be incredibly rewarding. But for more casual players, it might be a turnoff.
Oh, for sure. It's all about what kind of experience you're looking for. Speaking of challenges, let's talk about boss battles. The demo featured 4 unique encounters. They highlighted 2 in particular, a super fast fight against a stag that sounds intense, and then a duel against a more human-like opponent. That must have really tested those combat skills.
Yeah, it's great to hear they're going for variety with the bosses. Memorable boss fights are a staple of action games. So hopefully each encounter in the full game will feel distinct and offer its own unique challenge.
And there are going to be a lot of bosses to fight, apparently. Pearl Abyss, the developers have hinted at somewhere between 20 and 40 boss encounters in the final game.
That is quite a range, isn't it? It almost makes you wonder if they're still locking down the exact scope of the game, which again ties back into those ongoing development changes we were talking about earlier.
Okay, so we've got this super skill-based combat, a ton of boss fights, but what really separates Crimson Desert from a more traditional RPG? Because it doesn't seem like there's a deep character progression system.
Yeah, that seems to be a key difference. It sounds like you're not going to be spending hours building elaborate skill trees or agonizing over every stat point. Instead, your character's growth comes mainly from getting better gear and, of course, mastering all those cool moves you unlock. It's less about min-maxing your stats and more about refining your skills as a player.
And here's a real curveball. There's no character creation at all. You play as a fixed character named Cliff, who's apparently this Scottish gentleman with a mysterious past.
That right there tells you a lot about how they're approaching the game. It's less about creating your own avatar and forging your own destiny, and more about experiencing a specific story through the eyes of this predetermined character. Think of it like playing as a character in a movie or a TV show. You're stepping into their shoes and experiencing their journey, which is an interesting choice considering they initially announced it as an MMO.
Right. It makes you wonder, did they always plan to have a set character? Or did that come later? Maybe as a way to really hone in on the story they want to tell?
Yeah, it's hard to say for sure. But the Fextralaire host actually brought up another intriguing detail. They weren't sure if the quest system was fully fleshed out yet. Like they couldn't tell if there would be branching paths or choices that impact the story.
So even the basic structure of how you progress through the game is
Uh,
kind of up in the air.
it seems that way, which honestly adds to the whole mystery surrounding Crimson Desert.
It's almost like watching a magic trick unfold. You see the pieces, but you have no idea how they're all going to come together.
That's a great analogy. And I think that's what's so fascinating about this deep dive. You were piecing together clues, trying to make sense of this game. That seems to defy easy categorization.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, are all these changes, these shifts in direction, a sign of creative ambition or maybe a bit of uncertainty on the developer's part?
Well, game development is a complex process. There are always going to be challenges, unexpected hurdles, and moments where you have to step back and reevaluate. It's possible the developers are simply iterating, experimenting, and trying to find the best way to bring their vision to life.
Which is fair enough. And sometimes that experimentation leads to something truly groundbreaking. Think about games that have blended genres in the past, like BioShock, with its mix of FPS action and RPG elements.
Exactly. Sometimes those unexpected combinations result in something truly special.
Okay, so I have to admit, the more we dig into this, the more I'm kind of torn. Part of me is really intrigued by the mystery, by the fact that we still don't fully understand what Crimson Desert is going to be. But another part of me is a little hesitant, maybe even a little worried.
I get that. It's like watching a tightrope walker.
Meh.
You're both amazed by their skill and worry they might fall. It's that element of risk that keeps you on the edge of your seat.
Okay, that is a spot-on analogy, because on the one hand, you've got this incredible combat system. That sounds like it could be a blast to master. But then you have all these unknowns, these questions about the story, the quest system, even the basic genre.
And I think that's the beauty of it. We don't have all the answers yet. We're on this journey of discovery along with the developers, and that's what makes it so exciting.
True, but it also makes it hard to predict whether Crimson Desert will ultimately be a triumph or a disappointment.
That's the nature of game development. There's always an element of risk involved, especially when you're trying to push boundaries and break new ground. But even if Crimson Desert doesn't live up to all the hype, it's clear that Pearl Abyss is trying to do something different, something innovative.
You know, it's funny, when we first started talking about this, I was focused on the confusion, the mixed messages about what kind of game this is, but now I'm actually more intrigued by those unanswered questions.
Hmm. Because sometimes the most compelling stories are the ones where we don't know the ending.
Exactly. And honestly, even if the developers themselves are still figuring things out, that doesn't necessarily mean the game is doomed. Sometimes that creative exploration is what leads to the most memorable experiences.
Absolutely. Think about games that went through massive overhauls during development, The Last of Us being a prime example. They originally envisioned it as a more straightforward zombie action game, before pivoting to the character-driven narrative we know and love today.
You're right. Sometimes those changes, even if they seem drastic, end up being for the best.
And who knows, maybe by the time Crimson Desert actually releases, it'll have evolved into something even more unexpected than what we're seeing now.
Wouldn't that be wild? We might have to do a whole other deep dive just to keep up.
That's a great idea. But for now, we'll have to be content with the information we have. These tantalizing glimpses into a game, that's still shrouded in mystery.
So we've talked about the combat, the boss battles, the lack of character creation, and the mystery surrounding the story and quests. But there's another detail that's been bugging me. The Fextra Life video barely touches on the world itself. We know it's open world, but what's it actually like?
That's a great question. And unfortunately, one we don't have a lot of answers to yet. The footage in the video mostly focused on combat and those boss encounters. So we didn't get much sense of the environment, the atmosphere, or the overall scale of the world.
That's a shame, because for me, the world is such a crucial part of an open world game.
I agree. The setting, the visuals, the lore, they all contribute to the sense of immersion and exploration. That makes open world games so compelling.
Hopefully we'll get a better look at the world in future trailers or gameplay demos. I'm really curious to see what kind of environments they've created, what kind of secrets and hidden areas we might find. Maybe it'll even shed some light on the story, or at least give us some hints about the lore of this world.
I'm with you on that. The world is almost like a character in itself, and I'm eager to learn more about its history, its secrets, and what role Cliff plays in all of it.
And we can't forget about those potential quest systems. Will they be more linear, guiding you through a set path? Or will there be branching storylines, choices that have real consequences, maybe even multiple endings?
Those are all great questions. And honestly, I'm kind of excited that we don't have the answers yet. It leaves room for speculation, for imagination. We can all come up with our own theories about what kind of world Crimson Desert will offer, what kind of story it will tell.
It's almost like the developers have given us a blank canvas and said, okay, what do you think this game is going to be?
And I love that. It invites us to be active participants in the process, to engage with the game on a deeper level, even before we've had a chance to play it.
It almost makes you wish you could peek inside the minds of the developers and see what they're cooking up. You know, what are their inspirations? What are they arguing about in those design meetings?
Well, I'd love to be a fly on the wall for those conversations, just to hear the back and forth, the passion, the creative struggles.
Right. But you know, even with all these unknowns, I have to say, I'm more excited about Crimson Desert now than I was before we started this deep dive. It's like the mystery itself has become part of the appeal.
Yeah, I think that speaks to the power of a good tease. You know, they've given us just enough information to spark our curiosity, to get us theorizing and debating without revealing all the cards. It's a smart marketing strategy for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And it's working on me hook, line, and sinker. So where does this leave us? We've got this game that's gone through some serious identity shifts, a combat system that sounds both challenging and rewarding, a fixed protagonist that adds a layer of intrigue to the narrative, and a whole lot of unanswered questions about the world, the story, and those potentially game-changing quest systems.
Yeah, it's a lot to process, that's for sure. But I think the biggest takeaway here is that Crimson Desert is shaping up to be something truly unique. It's not your typical RPG, it's not your typical action-adventure game, and it's definitely not your typical MMO.
It's a hybrid, a fusion of different genres and ideas, and honestly, I can't wait to see how it all comes together.
Me either.
Mhm.
And, you know, even if the final product doesn't perfectly match our expectations, the fact that Prolibis is willing to experiment, to take risks, to push the boundaries of what a game can be, that's something worth celebrating.
Totally agree. So what do you think? What kind of game do you think Crimson Desert will be? Is this genre-bending brilliance, or is it a recipe for disaster?
Hmm. Only time will tell. But I have a feeling, no matter what form it takes, Crimson Desert is going to leave its mark on the gaming world.
And we want to hear your thoughts. Head over to our website, join the forum, and let's break down all the clues, the hints, the mysteries,
Yeah.
and the wild speculation.
Yeah, because in the world of games, the journey is just as important as the destination. And with Crimson Desert, it looks like we're in for a wild ride.
This has been an incredible deep dive, and I can't wait for the next one. Until then, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those minds open to the possibilities.